Hello, Mr. Seagal. Hi, I'm Jack. I'm a big fan of yours.
Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you. I'm staying in the hotel as well. Yeah, a huge fan of your work. I'm an actor myself.
Really?
Yeah. And
Action actor?
some action.
Martial arts?
Did Steven Seagal build his entire career on a lie? After decades of rumors, Jean-Claude Van Damme has finally broken his silence. And what he reveals isn't just shocking. It completely changes everything we thought we knew about Seagal's legendary image. The truth? It's far more brutal than any Hollywood fight scene. Stick around, because what you're about to hear will leave you questioning everything. The silent rivalry traces back to the early 1990s, an era when walking into any video rental store meant being greeted by two dominant names, Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal. They weren't just action stars, they were symbols of masculinity, martial arts prowess, and the adrenaline-fueled cinema that defined a generation. One dazzled audiences with his lightning-fast kicks and championship credentials, while the other captivated with bone-snapping Aikido moves and an icy stare that could freeze a room. But hidden beneath their on-screen bravado was a brewing tension, one far more personal and unscripted than their choreographed fight scenes. At first glance, there was no public animosity, no interviews laced with insults or magazine covers broadcasting a feud. Yet, behind closed doors and whispered conversations, something was off. Seagal, with an air of smug confidence, would often belittle other martial artists in interviews, subtly throwing shade at Van Damme. Without naming him directly, Seagal dismissed Van Damme as a mere dancer, a thinly veiled jab at Van Damme's early ballet background, suggesting his skills were more performance than combat. It was a clever dig, sly enough to avoid confrontation, but sharp enough for those in the industry to catch the underlying disrespect. Meanwhile, Van Damme stayed silent, letting his work speak for itself. He was delivering one hit after another. Bloodsport, Kickboxer, Universal Soldier, Time Cop, the list was relentless. Unlike Seagal, Van Damme had real tournament experience and a reputation for intense training. His kicks weren't just cinematic flair, they were devastating weapons honed through years of discipline. Yet, as the tension quietly simmered, insiders knew there was a genuine divide. Crew members whispered about how producers deliberately avoided having both stars at the same events to prevent an inevitable clash. It wasn't open warfare, but it wasn't harmony either. Fans, caught in the crossfire, took sides, endlessly debating who would triumph in a real fight. Was Seagal's Aikido genuinely effective against Van Damme's speed and power? Would technique outmaneuver raw athleticism? The debates raged across martial arts magazines, online forums, and late-night talk shows, with everyone voicing strong opinions, but neither man confronting the other directly. At least, not yet. Beneath it all, this was never just personal. It was philosophical. Van Damme embodied the electrifying, crowd-pleasing spectacle of competitive kickboxing, while Seagal represented the stoic, almost mystical fluidity of Aikido. Their on-screen personas mirrored their real-life dynamics. Van Damme, open and passionate, wearing his emotions proudly. Seagal, enigmatic and detached, always appearing to conceal something beneath the surface. And yet, despite the growing divide, their careers remained intertwined. When Van Damme landed a hit, Seagal countered with his own. When Seagal veered into darker roles, Van Damme leaned into heartfelt, emotionally charged storylines. It was like watching two master painters working on opposing ends of the same canvas, constantly reacting, constantly contrasting. By the late 90s, what had begun as a quiet tension had evolved into a prolonged Cold War, silent, unspoken, but heavy with pride. For martial artists, respect isn't handed out, it's earned. And soon, one of them was about to demand it the only way he knew how. Enter the now infamous Stallone Party incident. For years, their silent battle remained under the radar, until one evening threatened to ignite it all. Sylvester Stallone, the kingpin of action cinema, hosted a lavish gathering, bringing together the biggest names of Hollywood's action elite under one roof. The guest list read like an action movie hall of fame: Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, and among them, Van Damme and Seagal. Two men who had never shared a film, barely exchanged words, and certainly never exchanged respect. At first, everything was civil: laughter, stories, flowing drinks. But true to form, Seagal couldn't resist steering the conversation into familiar, cutting territory. According to Stallone himself, Seagal once again belittled Van Damme's background, mocking his legitimacy as a martial artist and downplaying his credentials. Whether he expected Van Damme to hear or simply didn't care is unclear. But this time, Van Damme heard, and he wasn't about to stay silent. What happened next became Hollywood legend. Van Damme confronted Seagal directly. No stunt doubles, no cameras, just raw tension. He didn't throw a punch but issued a straightforward challenge. Step outside and settle it like true martial artists. Seagal laughed it off, attempting to dismiss the situation. But Van Damme stood firm, repeating his challenge and calling Seagal out to back up his words. Seagal refused and left the party entirely. The story could have ended there, a tense exchange and nothing more. But Van Damme wasn't finished. Later that night, he tracked Seagal to a nearby nightclub where the confrontation reignited. Once again, he challenged Seagal to settle the score. And once again, Seagal declined. Over time, the incident morphed into Hollywood folklore. Some whispered it was all for show, while others claimed it nearly erupted into something far more intense. Stallone would later confirm the confrontation, describing it as one of the most electric, charged moments he'd ever witnessed at a party, bluntly stating that Van Damme was simply too strong, and Seagal didn't want any part of it. For Van Damme, this wasn't about bravado or headlines, it was about honor. In his world, when your skills are questioned, you prove yourself not with words, but with action. To him, martial arts wasn't a performance, it was a code. And Seagal had broken that code. Yet Seagal's refusal didn't immediately impact his Hollywood standing. He continued to make films and cultivate his enigmatic persona. But within martial arts circles, the story lingered. Not just that Seagal walked away, but that he did so twice, face-to-face with someone ready to settle it. Van Damme never gloated. He never paraded the story in interviews or turned it into a film plot. He let the silence speak volumes. But that confrontation marked a point of no return. The Cold War had escalated, and from that night forward, everything changed. As the dust seemed to settle, the tension between Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal refused to completely fade. Quiet on the surface, yet alive and pulsing behind closed doors, their unresolved conflict remained one of Hollywood's most whispered legends. The infamous party encounter had transformed into an urban myth, a tale traded in hushed tones among insiders, with no video proof, no public statements, just countless variations of the same electrifying story. Neither man chose to speak publicly or settle the matter definitively. No ring, no movie collaboration, no candid interviews. Then, just when the world thought this chapter was finally closing, an unexpected spark reignited the long-standing rivalry. In a 2023 interview with The Telegraph, Van Damme nonchalantly dropped a bombshell that sent tremors through the action movie world. With an almost amused calmness, he revealed that there had once been a jaw-dropping offer on the table, $20 million each, for an actual fight between him and Seagal. Not a choreographed scene, but a real, unscripted showdown in Las Vegas at the Mirage Casino. The setup: two of the most iconic martial artists of their generation stepping into the ring. No doubles, no retakes, just skill versus skill, pride versus pride. They were planning a fight between me and Steven at the Mirage, $20 million each, he shared, his words slicing through years of speculation like a blade through silk. That casual statement landed like a thunderclap, leaving fans breathless. This wasn't just another wild rumor manufactured by internet gossip mills. It was a legitimate proposal orchestrated by none other than powerhouse producer Peter Guber. The money, the venue, the stakes, they were all real. Van Damme had said yes. Seagal, he never showed. And just like that, the headlines erupted. News outlets, YouTube analysts, and fans across the globe dissected every angle, desperately trying to understand how such a monumental clash never came to be. Why didn't Seagal accept? Was it nerves, pride, or was it a deliberate move to protect an image meticulously crafted over decades? Unlike Van Damme, who had tested his mettle in real tournaments, Seagal's reputation rested largely on demonstrations, never facing true competition under bright lights. Perhaps Seagal viewed the offer as beneath him, a spectacle unworthy of his mystique. Or maybe he understood that stepping into that ring could strip away carefully built illusions, revealing vulnerabilities both men might never recover from. Yet what made Van Damme's revelation even more intriguing was his tone. There was no bragging, no victorious gloating. Instead, it carried the weight of a secret long held, finally released for the world to judge. The facts alone spoke volumes. And Seagal? He remained silent, offering no denial, no explanation, no counter to the mounting curiosity. This void of response only deepened the mystery, leaving the story suspended in a cloud of unanswered questions. The fight never happened. The moment passed, slipping quietly into Hollywood's collection of near-mythical what-ifs. For many fans, that unclaimed battle became more than a missed payday. It embodied the very essence of the Van Damme-Seagal saga. A rivalry steeped in unspoken pride, fortified by years of strategic silence, and ultimately defined by a confrontation that never materialized. But just when it seemed the narrative was reaching its quiet end, Van Damme threw another curveball that no one anticipated. Without fanfare, without any grand public announcement, a single Instagram post appeared on Van Damme's account that sent shockwaves through the fan community. There they were, Van Damme and Seagal, seated side by side at a dinner table, smiling for the camera, glasses raised. The caption? "Thank you, Steven and your family, for the wonderful dinner. Happy birthday, big announcement coming soon." And like that, the internet ignited. Years of icy distance suddenly gave way to a cozy image that stunned even the most die-hard followers. Was this the long-awaited truce? A genuine reconciliation? Or was something else brewing beneath the carefully curated image? Comments flooded social media. Some fans cheered, thrilled that these two icons had finally broken bread. Others scratched their heads, recalling how Van Damme once challenged Seagal face-to-face and chased him down to a nightclub when he refused. The debate only fueled deeper intrigue. The photo itself became a visual puzzle. Every expression, every glance was scrutinized. Was Van Damme's smile genuine? Did Seagal appear uncomfortable? Was this meeting heartfelt or strategically staged? Media outlets pounced, proclaiming peace at last. Some headlines celebrated the supposed reunion, while others questioned the authenticity behind this sudden camaraderie. But beneath the celebratory noise, something didn't sit right. The video clip was meticulously edited. No sound, no candid behind-the-scenes moments, just a perfectly framed glimpse of an evening that raised more questions than it answered. And then came that final tease. Big announcement coming soon. What was the announcement? A long-delayed film project? A documentary that would finally unpack years of animosity? A surprise martial arts exhibition that would settle the score once and for all? The possibilities were endless, and the speculation reached fever pitch. Yet, both men retreated into silence, letting curiosity take control of the narrative. Even more telling was the choice of timing. This wasn't a random dinner. It was Seagal's birthday, a deeply personal moment suddenly transformed into a global headline. Why choose such an intimate occasion to tease something so significant? If this was truly a reconciliation, why not share more candid moments? Handshakes, laughter, genuine connection. The absence of such gestures made fans uneasy, fueling theories that this could all be calculated hype. Longtime followers noticed something subtle yet haunting in Van Damme's expression. A glimmer not of peace or satisfaction, but of something far more complex. It wasn't joy, nor was it hostility. It was as if Van Damme was carefully orchestrating the next chapter in a saga that had fascinated fans for decades. Whatever that big announcement was, it was coming. And it wasn't going to be what anyone expected. When Jean-Claude finally dropped those words, it was like years of bottled-up tension spilling out all at once. No hesitation, no sugarcoating, just raw truth laid bare. He wasn't angry. If anything, his tone was worn, like a man who'd grown exhausted from carrying the weight of a lie he'd watched grow for decades. For Van Damme, this wasn't about pride anymore. It was about finally peeling back the layers of myth that had protected Steven Seagal for so long. What followed was a statement that felt like a blade, cutting through years of carefully maintained illusions. He wasn't attacking for drama. He was finally calling out what he saw as the decades-long masquerade of a man who built his empire on stories instead of scars. As Jean-Claude spoke, his words carried the gravity of someone who'd walked the walk. He wasn't some online critic or a jealous peer. He was a fighter who'd bled for his craft, someone whose career had been carved out in sweat-drenched gyms and real tournaments. He highlighted what fans had whispered about for years, that Seagal had spun tales of training government agents and facing off against dangerous men in real life, but never once entered a sanctioned fight. Never once stood under the bright lights of a ring with his skills truly tested. And then Van Damme circled back to that staggering offer, the one that would have seen both men face off for $20 million apiece. The stage had been set in Las Vegas. The deal was real. Van Damme had agreed. Seagal had walked away. The implications thundered louder than any headline could. What really twisted the knife was when Jean-Claude addressed the Instagram post that had once given fans a glimmer of hope. That viral dinner scene, smiling faces, raised glasses, it wasn't a reunion, nor was it a moment of peace. It was, as Van Damme revealed, an observation. He wanted to see if time had changed anything. It hadn't. Seagal, he claimed, was still clinging to the same inflated stories, the same performance that had worked for so long. Only now, the curtain was finally being pulled back. That big announcement? It wasn't a project or partnership. It was this confession, the truth laid bare for the world to see. And as Jean-Claude spoke, it became clear that what fans had long treated as a question of who was the better fighter was never the real issue. It was always about integrity, respect, authenticity. The silence that followed Van Damme's confession was deafening. No response came from Seagal, no statement, no denial, just silence, a hollow space where rebuttal should have been. This time, his trademark quiet didn't feel like mystery. It felt like retreat, like absence, as if even Seagal himself couldn't defend the stories any longer. His defenders scrambled to offer explanations, suggesting bitterness or publicity stunts, but it was clear Van Damme hadn't delivered his words for shock value. He had simply reached the end of his patience. The fallout was immediate and intense. Clips of Seagal's old interviews resurfaced. Those now infamous tales of hand-to-hand combat with gangsters, training elite operatives, and bending arms behind closed doors were replayed, dissected, and scrutinized. Meanwhile, footage of Van Damme's competitive bouts, rigorous training sessions, and bruising matches flooded online spaces. The contrast was undeniable. Even respected martial artists weighed in. Some offered cautious support for Van Damme, others spoke with blunt honesty, calling out the long-standing exaggerations surrounding Seagal's career. For years, professional courtesy and industry politics had kept this conversation muted, but now, that veil had been torn away. This wasn't just a battle of two egos anymore. It was a cultural reckoning for fans who had grown up idolizing both men. The debate shifted from who threw the better kick to what truly defines greatness. Is it the persona, or is it the path you take to earn it? Can a man be considered a legend if his narrative, as Van Damme put it, was crafted more on fiction than reality? And while Seagal remained silent, Van Damme simply stepped back. There were no victory laps or media blitzes. His words stood on their own, sharp and unflinching. After years of shadowboxing around the topic, he had finally faced it head-on, rewriting both his story and Seagal's with one clear declaration. It wasn't a fight that ended this saga, it was the truth. And sometimes, honesty delivers a blow that no punch ever could. Yet not every fan abandoned Seagal. Some remained fiercely loyal, pointing to his early cinematic influence. Indeed, Seagal's films introduced Aikido to the masses, offering a unique flavor to martial arts cinema in the late 80s and early 90s. His breakout films like Above the Law and Under Siege cemented him as an icon, his stoic demeanor and unique fighting style captivating millions. But as time passed, the question shifted from his screen presence to his actual skill set, and that's where the foundation began to crumble. Off-screen, Seagal's lavish lifestyle told a story of its own. At his peak, he owned an impressive fleet of luxury cars, including a Bentley Continental GT, multiple Ferraris, and custom-built SUVs. His real estate portfolio featured sprawling properties from Arizona to Louisiana, including a $3.5 million estate known for its bulletproof glass. Seagal also held partial ownership in energy drink ventures and weapons training schools. Known for his high-end watch collection, he often sported Rolex Submariners and custom Swiss timepieces. Seagal was rumored to hold substantial insurance coverage for his properties, valuable collectibles, and professional contracts, carefully protecting his assets throughout his career. But the key lesson from Seagal's financial journey is stark. While image may spark fame, long-term wealth demands real groundwork, diversification, smart partnerships, and maintaining authenticity. In the end, the saga of Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal wasn't about fists or fortune. It was about truth. Two men who walked parallel paths under the spotlight, but lived very different realities behind it. One chose discipline, openness, and vulnerability. The other built mystique, but risked everything by blurring the line between fiction and fact. And as Van Damme finally let the truth ring out, fans were left to decide for themselves. Was Steven Seagal ever the real deal? Or was his greatest role the myth he so carefully played? So, Van Damme dropped the truth bomb we never saw coming. Smash that like, drop your thoughts below, and subscribe. Because in Hollywood, the real fights happen off camera.